And that's how the fight started with my mother-in-law. A few years ago, I thought it would be a good idea to purchase a cemetery plot as a birthday present for my mother-in-law. The following year, I didn't get her a present. She was not too happy about this and questioned why I didn't get her a present. I responded, "Well, you still haven't used the birthday present which I purchased for you last year." And that's how the fight started. My doctor said I need to get more exercise, so I shared my daily workout routine. I jumped to conclusions, climbed the walls, drag my heels, push my luck, make mountains out of molehills, bend over backward, run around in circles, put my foot in my mouth, go over the edge, and beat around the bush. By the time I finish all that, I'm completely worn out. Who has the energy for anything else? A good laugh or even a smile to start the day. It's the best kind of workout. 3 men were sitting around bragging about how they had given their new wives duties. The first man had married a Catholic woman and bragged that he had told his wife she was to do all the dishes and house cleaning that needed doing at their house. He said it took a couple days, but on the 3rd day, he came home to a clean house and the dishes were all washed and put away. The second man had married a Mormon woman. He bragged that he had given his wife orders that she was to do all the cleaning, the dishes, and the cooking. He told them the first day he didn't see any results, but the next day it was better. By the 3rd day, the house was clean, the dishes were done, and he had a huge dinner on the table. The third man had married a Jewish girl. He boasted that he told her that her duties were to keep the house clean, dishes washed, lawn mowed, laundry done, and hot meals on the table, every day. He said the first day he didn't see anything, the second day he didn't see anything, but by the 3rd day most of the swelling had gone down, and he could see a little out of his left eye. A cowboy appeared before St. Peter at the pearly gates. "Have you ever done anything of particular merit?" St. Peter asked. Well, I can think of one thing," the cowboy offered. "On a trip to the Black Hills out in South Dakota, I came upon a gang of bikers who were threatening a young woman. I directed them to leave her alone, but they wouldn't listen. So I approached the largest and most tattooed biker and smacked him in the face, kicked his bike over, ripped out his nose ring, and threw it on the ground. I yelled, 'Now back off or I'll kick the shit out of all of you.' St. Peter was impressed. 'When did this happen?' 'Couple of minutes ago.' An elderly woman went to the store to buy some cat food. She picked up 3 cans, but the cashier stopped her, saying, 'I'm sorry, but we can't sell this to you unless you prove you own a cat. Some seniors have been buying cat food for themselves, so we need to make sure it's for your pet.' Unfazed, the woman went home, brought her cat back to the store, and was able to purchase the food. The next day, she returned to buy 2 cans of dog food. Again, the cashier requested proof, so the woman went home, fetched her dog, and returned, successfully completing her purchase. On the 3rd day, the woman came back with a small box that had a hole in the lid. She handed it to the cashier and said, 'Would you mind sticking your finger inside?' The cashier hesitated, saying, 'What if there's a snake in there?' The woman reassured her, 'I promise there's nothing in there that could harm you.' Reluctantly, the cashier put her finger in the hole, then quickly pulled it out, exclaiming, 'That's disgusting.' With a grin, the elderly woman replied, 'Glad you agree. Now can I buy 2 rolls of toilet paper, please?' The other day, my daughter sent me yet another email, urging me to put my free time to better use. 'Why don't you try something more meaningful with your day?' she suggested. I chuckled and replied, 'What's wrong with lounging in the sun with a cold drink? That's plenty meaningful to me.' But she wasn't backing down. She told me she was just concerned about my well-being and suggested I try socializing at the local senior center. So I decided to have a little fun with her. Later that evening, I wrote her back and said, 'You know, you're right. I joined a new club today, the Skydiving Club.' Her reply was almost instant. 'Skydiving? Seriously? At your age? I couldn't resist. I told her I'd already received my membership card and sent her a photo of it. Seconds later, she called, sounding both confused and worried. Dad, do you even have your glasses on? That's not a skydiving club card. It says dance club. Oh dear, I replied, barely able to keep a straight face. Well, that's a twist. I'm already signed up for 3 dances a week. She fell silent, probably trying to process the shock. After a long pause, she sighed, "You're impossible," and hung up. A couple went out for breakfast and noticed a senior special on the menu. 2 eggs, bacon, hash browns, and toast for just $2.99. That sounds perfect, the wife said, but I don't really want the eggs. The waiter replied, well, if you skip the eggs, I'll have to charge you $3.49 since it would be a la carte. Surprised, the wife asked, so I'll be paying extra just for not taking the eggs? Exactly, the waiter confirmed. Fine, I'll take the special, the wife agreed. The waiter smiled and asked, how would you like your eggs? Raw, and in the shell, she said without missing a beat. She took those eggs home, and later that day, she baked a cake. A woman asks her husband at breakfast time, would you like some bacon and eggs, a slice of toast, and maybe some grapefruit juice and coffee? He declines. Thanks for asking, but I'm not hungry right now. It's this Viagra, he says. It's really taken the edge off my appetite. At lunchtime, she asked him if he would like something. How about a bowl of soup, homemade muffins, or a cheese sandwich? He declines. The Viagra, he says, it's really spoiled my need for food. Come dinner time, she asks if he wants anything to eat. Would you like a juicy ribeye steak and some scrumptious apple pie? Or maybe a rotisserie chicken or tasty stir-fry? He declines again. No, he says, it's got to be the Viagra. I'm still not hungry. Well, she says, would you mind getting off me? I'm bloody starving. An old retired sailor puts on his old uniform and goes down to the docks once more for old time's sake. He hires a prostitute and takes her up to a room. He's going at it as best as he can for a guy his age when he asks, how am I doing? The prostitute replies, well, sailor, you're doing about 3 knots. 3 knots? He replies. What's that supposed to mean? She says, you're not hard, you're not in, and you're not getting your money back. An 86-year-old man was waiting in the Double Dutch bar to have some drinks with an old mate. While he was waiting for his mate, a gorgeous girl enters the bar and sits down a few seats away from where he was sitting. The girl is so attractive that the old guy just can't take his eyes off her. After a short while, the girl notices that he's staring at her and approaches him. Before the old guy even has time to apologize for his staring, the girl looks him deep in the eyes and says to him in a sultry tone, I'll do anything you'd like me to do. Whatever you can imagine in your wildest dreams, it doesn't matter how unusual or extreme it might be. I'm game. I only want $100, and there's one other condition. Completely blown away by the sudden turn of events, the old guy asks her what that one condition is. Well, she says, you have to tell me exactly what you want me to do, and you can only use 3 words to describe it. The old man takes a few seconds and considers the offer from that gorgeous girl. He takes out his wallet and gives a $100 to the girl. He then looks her straight in the eyes and says slowly and clearly, paint my house. There's a woman sitting in the vet's with her small dog. A young girl with a Great Dane comes in and sits beside her. As they are waiting, they strike up a conversation. The young girl says, "What's he in for?" Pointing to the dog. The older woman looks around and makes sure no one else can hear. She says, "Well, actually, it's a bit embarrassing. You see, every time I bend down, he tries to mount me. So we're here to have him neutered." She then turns to the young girl and said, "So what's he in for?" pointing to her dog. The young girl says, "Actually, he's got the same problem as yours." The older women say, "So have you brought him in to be neutered too?" "Good God, no," says the young girl. "I just want his toenails clipped." A young couple got married and left for their honeymoon. When they returned, the bride immediately called her mother. "How was the honeymoon, sweetheart?" her mother asked. "Oh, Mum, it was wonderful. So romantic," the bride gushed. But suddenly, her voice cracked and she burst into tears. "What's wrong, dear?" her mother asked, alarmed. "Mum, it's Sam," the bride sobbed. "As soon as we got back, he started using the most horrible language, words I'd never heard before. Awful, horrible four-letter words. You've got to come and get me. Please, Mum." Her mother tried to calm her down. "Sarah, take a deep breath. It can't be that bad. What kind of four-letter words?" "I can't say them, Mum," the bride wept. "They're so embarrassing. Please just come get me." "Darling, you need to tell me what he said. What could be so terrible?" Through her tears, the bride finally confessed. "Mum, he said words like dust, wash, iron, and cook." A wealthy old man was lying on his deathbed when it occurred to him that he had never made a will. So he called his lawyer to help him draft one. The next day, the lawyer arrived, and the old man said, "I want 25% of my money to go to charity. After all, I've taken so much. I should give something back." "How generous of you," the lawyer replied. "I'll make sure that happens right away. I also want 25% to go to my son. He's been waiting for the day he could get his hands on my money," the old man added. "Okay, I'll make sure he gets 25%, the lawyer responded. "And the rest should go to my wife, on the condition that she remarries after I die," the old man said. The lawyer, a bit puzzled, asked, "Okay, I'll make sure that happens. But may I ask why you want her to remarry? It's a rather unusual request." The old man grinned and said, "I want to make sure at least one man regrets my death." John worked hard to support his family, and for his birthday, his wife decided he deserved a special treat. She blindfolded him and took him to a local strip club. When they arrived, the doorman greeted them with a friendly, "Hey John, how you doing?" Confused, his wife removed the blindfold and asked if he had been there before. "Oh no," John replied casually. "He's one of the security guys I meet on my business trips." Once they were seated, a waitress approached and asked John if he wanted his usual drink, bringing him a Budweiser. His wife's discomfort grew as she questioned, "How did she know you drink Budweiser?" John shrugged, saying, "I recognize her. She's the waitress from the bar around the corner from my office. I stop by for a Bud every Friday, honey." Suddenly, a stripper approached their table, wrapped her arms around John and purred, "Hi, Johnny. Want your usual table dance, big boy?" Fuming, his wife grabbed her purse and stormed out of the club. John quickly followed, spotting her getting into a cab. Just as she was about to slam the door, he jumped in beside her. "Wait, it's a misunderstanding. She must have confused me with someone else," he pleaded. But his wife was having none of it. She yelled at him, unleashing a torrent of four-letter words. The cab driver turned around, eyebrows raised, and remarked, "Geez, John, you really picked a winner this time." A woman decides to treat herself to a facelift for her 50th birthday, spending $15,000 to look fabulous. On her way home, she stops at a newsstand to buy a newspaper. Before leaving, she asks the clerk, "How old do you think I am?" "About 32, the clerk replies. "Actually, I'm exactly 50, she says with a smile. Feeling great, she heads into a McDonald's and poses the same question to the counter girl. "I'd guess around 29, the girl answers. The woman beams, "Nope, I'm 50. Now on a confidence high, she stops at a candy shop and asks the same question to the assistant at the counter. "Oh, I'd say 30, the clerk responds. Again, she proudly states, I'm 50, but thank you. While waiting for the bus, she turns to an elderly man beside her and asks him the same question. He replies, "Lady, I'm 78 and my eyesight isn't what it used to be. But when I was younger, I had a surefire way to guess a woman's age. It may sound a bit unusual, but if you let me place my hands on your shoulders, I could tell you exactly how old you are." They sit in silence on the empty street until her curiosity gets the better of her. Finally, she exclaims, "What the heck? Go ahead." He places his hands gently on her shoulders and begins to feel around. After a couple of moments, he steps back and says, "Madame, you are 50. Stunned and amazed, she replies, "That was incredible. How could you tell?" He smiles and says, "I was behind you at McDonald's." During lunch at work, I indulged in 3 plates of beans, a choice I knew I'd regret. When I got home, my husband was unusually excited to see me. "Darling, I've got a surprise for dinner tonight," he said with a grin. Before I could respond, he blindfolded me and led me to the dining room. I took a seat, feeling curious but slightly nervous. Just as he was about to remove the blindfold, the phone rang. "Don't peek," he warned, rushing off to answer the call. Now those beans were starting to make their presence known. The pressure was building, and with my husband occupied, I figured it was the perfect chance to relieve some of it. So, I carefully shifted my weight to one side and let out a tiny, quiet one. Well, not so tiny or quiet. The smell hit me instantly, like a compost truck had collided with a skunk in the dead of summer. Panicked, I grabbed my napkin and fanned the air wildly. Emboldened, I shifted to the other side and released a few more, each one worse than the last. It smelled like boiled cabbage left to rot in the sun. I kept an ear on my husband's phone conversation while continuing my unholy gas escapade. The relief was euphoric, and I sat there fanning the air like my life depended on it. Finally, I heard him wrapping up his call. Quickly, I smoothed my dress, placed the napkin back on my lap, and folded my hands, looking the picture of innocence. He returned, apologizing for the delay, and asked if I had peeked. "Of course not," I replied sweetly. With a proud flourish, he removed the blindfold, and there, staring at me in horror, were 12 dinner guests, hands covering their noses, shouting, "Happy birthday!" A police officer notices a man driving around with a pickup truck full of penguins. He pulls the man over and says, "You can't be driving around with penguins in this town. Take them to the zoo right away." The man agrees and drives off. The next day, the officer sees the same man driving around again, this time with the truck full of penguins. But now, all the penguins are wearing sunglasses. The officer pulls him over once more and says, "I thought I told you yesterday to take these penguins to the zoo." The man replies, "I did. Today I'm taking them to the beach." A couple had been together for many years. There was only one friction in their relation after all these years, being that the man always had the habit of farting really loud just after waking up. Because of the noise, his wife then wakes up and starts complaining about the smell, making her grasp for air and her eyes becoming watery. Every day, she would plead with him to stop doing that every morning because it was making her sick to the stomach. He just said that he couldn't help it and it was a normal, natural thing that can happen to everybody. She asked him to please see a doctor because she was afraid that he would blow out his guts one day. As the years went by, the man didn't stop ripping them out. But then, one Christmas morning, while she was preparing dinner for that Christmas evening, while he was still upstairs and sound asleep, she had a good look at the turkey's innards, neck, gizzard, liver, and all the other spare parts of the turkey, and came up with a malicious idea. She took the turkey guts and placed them in a bowl. She took the bowl up where her man was still sound asleep. She pulled back the covers and then carefully pulled back the elastic waistband of her husband's underpants. She then emptied the bowl with turkey guts into his shorts, making sure she didn't wake him up. Sometime later, she heard that her husband woke up with his daily routine of trumpeting, but this time it was followed by a blood-curdling scream and the sound of him running to the bathroom. The woman could hardly control herself from laughing out loud while she was rolling on the floor with tears in her eyes from laughter. She reckoned that after years of his torture, she finally got him back real good. After about 25 minutes later, the husband came down the stairs with a look of horror on his now grey face while his underpants were covered with blood. She asked him while she bit her lips, "What happened to you, honey?" "Well, honey," he said, "you were right all along. You've been warning me all these years, but I didn't listen to you." "What do you mean?" she asked. "Well," he said, "you always said that one day I would end up with my guts out because of the farting, right?" She said yes, and? "Well," he continued, "you were completely right, and today it really happened." The wife said, "Then we should go to a doctor as soon as possible then." The man replied, "Don't worry, my dear, 'cause by the grace of God, with some Vaseline and 2 fingers, I managed to get most of them back in."